Welcome back from the commercial break. Now let's continue to talk about problems in post-colonial leadership and education. The second problem I want to talk about is poor infrastructure and lack of resources. The root is poverty, so the materials and the finance is in lack of, and also the expertise, the teachers, and the advices, and the all types of resources are in short. And the third problem is that revising the general curriculum takes longer time, and it is more difficult. Also, the schools has stratified, which means they have different levels of schools. Some schools are very good quality, but some schools are in very poor quality. The money becomes the differentiator, but money is related to race. Actually, it's not that it is race that got the stratified different schools, but it's money. So richer people could go to better schools, but money is related to race. So now race got involved in the complicated issue. The example is South Africa. Right now, some very rich white people kind of are against the equalized schooling. They kind of support the stratified schooling systems because they want to provide the good quality and better schooling for their own children. And they don't want to pour their own money to support the equalizing schooling, which means they don't want to spend money on other kids' education. They only focus on their own kids. Okay. Now the fourth problem is that the top of the education pyramid remains still very narrow in most of Africa. So the basic primary education got much improved, but the top level in the higher education level or the secondary level is still very limited and not enough of improvement in most Africa. And the fifth problem I have here is slightly that less than half adult females in sub-Saharan Africa still remains illiterate. So it got some improvement of the illiteracy rates, but still less than 50% adult females in sub-Saharan still illiterate. And also in the countries of sub-Saharan Africa as a group, females do not yet constitute half of the enrollment in primary education. Okay, sorry about all the typos. Now I want to talk about a story of a girl in Ghana because I'm very impressed of the storytelling of last week's presentation, so I want to talk about a story in the Africa case as well. Okay, so this girl is named Charlotte, and she talks about, in her country in Africa, girls were viewed as nothing, and her education story originates from her grandparents. So her grandfather has 5 children, 4 girls and 1 boy. One of the girls is her mom, apparently, and her granddad doesn't want any of the girls to be educated, so he only sent his boy to the school. And also, her grandma has a market job, so she's selling items and goods in the market. So all the girls, including her mom, were required to be in the market to help with her grandma. But one day, her mom climbed up the tree to get some branches used as a firewood. But unfortunately, her mom fell from the tree and broke her one hand, and she was sent to the hospital. But the doctor said, okay, I don't know what I can do about this, and I'm not to cure this. So it's not treatable. Then unfortunately her mom had to get her one hand be cut off. Sounds cruel, but the thing is, after her mom got one hand cut off and only one hand left, her granddad kind of shifted and changed his attitude. 100 sent her mom to school because her mom only had one hand left and couldn't help with the market work anymore. So after her mom went to school and married her dad, and after her dad and now this girl was sent to school by her mom. Ooh, looks like bamboos. Okay, now let's talk about this one big theme: decentralization. Okay, first we're gonna talk about the rationales for decentralization. The first rationale is, they view that humans are inherently desire greater autonomy. Secondly, some people who were excluded politically before now develop a stake in a political system to be less likely to overthrow and destroy the political system. So it could help the maintaining of the current political system. The third rationale is the organization and administration of local control deemed higher efficiency, which actually in reality is not the case. Okay, second point, we're going to talk about the reality, the experience with the decentralization is often disappointing. So in reality, it's not real transfer of authority. Still has a lot of central control. Also, is a philosophical view that it's not central control or decentralization is better. It kind of coexist. It's just at different moment, different time in history, one is more important or less. The third point here is where inequality is maintained by local authorities, but some disadvantaged group may prefer stronger, not weaker central control. Because, if it comes to the local hand, some disadvantaged group may be in a more pathetic position, and the decentralization obstructs redistribution, lack of resource and money. Oh, another big hand here. So it's another big theme in the education of Africa is aid dependence. This is very big and huge. So aid dependence has two trends here. One is internalization, the other is institutionalization. So aid dependence is not just money, just advice, or just any amount of help. It's much more than that. It's the internalization within those education systems of the notion that improvement and change require extra control, advice, and often personnel. And so they can't develop by themselves. The notion is that the improvement needs and require and couldn't exist without the external support and others. And also as well, aid dependence is the adoption and institutionalization of constructs and analytic frameworks and assessment strategies developed elsewhere. So this is very bizarre. They use the assessment tools and strategies frameworks to that used elsewhere to apply it to Africa, which is very weird because it should be context based. So supplemented by the elaborate reporting routines now required by funding agencies, make the policies and preferences of foreign funders far more consequential than could be explained by the volume of the assistance. Okay, so now here are the huge dependence. First is something good because aid dependence could bring some immediate money and resources like books, textbooks. Even like some countries, the teacher salaries rely upon aid from other countries. The second is the increasing indebtedness. So the country borrow money from other countries and then they have to return the money, pay money back. So also consume a lot of government revenue. So they have less and less money from their government revenue to improve on education. This is a very bad cycle. So they borrow money and then they have to pay money. So the debt is like a snowball, increasing debt. The third is because they depend upon other countries for the funding. So other countries have services or some requirements to ask them to report something, and also how they develop their policy is kind of like a marketing strategy to attract foreign fundings to support their local development. So how they make their policy in education by the aid providing countries and agencies. The fourth one is in the things I've explained above. So aid dependence make Africa countries, long-term development actually obstructed rather than push forward. So when it comes to the funding, here's one strategy called distributive education financing. Which means the most affluent segments of the population bear the largest share of supporting the education system. So in plain word, the richest people pour most money to education. So in Africa, far from redistribution toward Africa, foreign aid is spent usually on personnel, services, products, and scholarships in the aid providing country rather than in Africa. So the end result would be, rather than more distribution in Africa toward Africa, is the opposite. So it costs the money and resource, even personnel outflow from Africa. So now is another big theme I want to talk about is here learning for all. So the global commitment to education for all explicitly asserted the importance of learning, not just schooling for all. So since the primary education enrollment got a lot of improvement, almost a maturation, although the last 5 to 10% is very hard to reach. So now the attention has shifted to education quality. But in Africa, the problem is schooling is not only just a passive activity where the teachers just transmit knowledge and student, usually a large group student, is just a receiver. No critical thinking, no active participating at all. And also inherited from their former colonizer, the education, the schooling to educate is just a small elite, just educate a small elite. It's not mass education at all. And here's a very interesting concept is inclusive schools, which focuses on cooperation and collaboration rather than competition and selection. But unfortunately, in Africa, competition and selection is a major theme in schooling. And inclusive schools also just combine and incorporate all different races and different social classes. It's a hetero. And they use examinations differently than normal African schools. Normal African schools use examinations to select and compete and to choose the best. And here, use examinations primarily just to access and where the curriculum and pedagogy are effective and where they need to be improved. It's not that students, that means the student is stupid or incapable. It's because of the system has some problems. However, Africa is far from learning for all, like I've explained earlier. They have fewer resources, money, and expertise. And also, like, the skill is tilted toward instrumental view. As the first slide, the two opposing views, transformational and instrumental, the education's role. So in Africa, education is more like an instrumental role. It's to prepare for the world of work, train for, not develop for potential development of human.